Diego Sanchez is not your average fighter. From winning the first ever Ultimate Fighter that quite literally saved the UFC to becoming a laughable meme later in his career, what went wrong? Well, let's find out what really happened to Diego Sanchez. But first, a little background. Diego Sanchez was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Even as a young kid, he showed a talent for athletics, and by his senior year of high school, he was crowned state wrestling champion. This fighting spirit wouldn't fade. After high school, he balanced a job at UPS with his true passion, MMA. He trained hard at Jackson Submission Fighting, laying the groundwork for his future success. In 2002, Diego stepped into the professional MMA world at an event called Ring of Fire. Even with a hurt ankle from the night before, he showed off his wrestling skills and won with a chokehold. This victory kicked off an impressive 11-fight winning streak, turning heads in the MMA world. Diego's career took a major leap when he joined the very first season of The Ultimate Fighter. This reality show put aspiring fighters to the test, and Diego quickly became a fan favorite, not just for his fighting skills, but also for his intense focus and some pretty unique training methods, like yoga and soaking in lightning storms. Now, he might have been a bit of an oddball, but inside the octagon there was no denying his talent. Diego dominated the competition and won the season finale, earning a UFC contract and becoming a middleweight contender. Diego's UFC debut was a win, and he continued to rack up victories against other tough fighters. He faced some setbacks like a loss that ended his undefeated streak and even battled through a nasty infection. But Diego is a true fighter, and he always bounced back, proving his resilience with wins against other strong competitors. In MMA, sometimes you gotta change things up, and that is what Diego did in 2009 when he moved down to the lightweight division. It was a smart move. He proved he could adapt and still win big, adding incredible victories to his resume while in the division. One such fight was his fight against Clay Guida, which has since become legend. Diego was no different. He set his sights on the UFC Lightweight Championship and faced off against the legendary BJ Penn. Now, this was a tough battle. Diego fought hard, but Penn was just too much that night. It was the first time Diego had ever even been stopped in a fight, and he suffered some serious injuries. But Diego Sanchez is a fighter through and through. He wasn't going to let one loss keep him down. He went back up to the welterweight division, ready for new challenges. He faced some tough opponents and never had a boring fight, and the fans loved him for it. But still, Diego's journey wasn't always smooth sailing. Diego is no stranger to unpredictability. In fact, that's actually the very reason why fans love him. Known for his eccentric personality, he always kept fans on their toes, whether during interviews or his energetic pre-fight walkouts. Despite his quirks, Diego holds a special place in the hearts of MMA fans. His dedication and tenacity in the sport have earned him immense respect. Diego's reputation as one of the toughest fighters to ever compete is well earned. Many fans recall his fight with Gilbert Melendez live and are still amazed at how he welcomed every attack with unwavering ferocity, even slapping himself in the face to prepare for the next onslaught. Diego Sanchez is a Hall of Famer, a true fighter in every sense of the word. Even though his offbeat behavior has sometimes made him the subject of jokes, deep down it is clear that fans respect him immensely. When news broke that Diego had fired his entire coaching team and chosen to have just one corner man, it wasn't exactly shocking. Diego has always been unpredictable, and teaming up with Joshua Fabia, an unknown self-help guru, seemed like something that we would expect him to. Seemed like another example of Diego's unique approach. However, as time went on, more details about Fabia emerged, and things started to look concerning. His unorthodox training methods and the extent of his control over Diego's career raised some red flags. Fabia wasn't just Diego's coach. He was also his manager, nutritionist, and filled almost every external role in Diego's life. Now, that level of involvement was worrying, and it didn't take long for the MMA world to become skeptical. The biggest red flag was when you listen to Joshua Fabia speak. For even a minute, you would quickly realize that he's a man that is driven by ego and narcissism. His behavior suggests possible manipulation and opportunism. The more we learned, the stranger the situation seemed. When Fabia came into Diego's life, Diego was at a low point. At 37, after a series of tough defeats and a recent divorce, Diego was in a rough spot. According to Diego, Fabia walked into his gym one day and captivated him with his presence, leading to their partnership. Fabia's teachings, based on his self-built school of self-awareness, enthralled Diego. But as the story unfolded, it became clear that this relationship was far from normal. Fabia's influence over Diego was unsettling, and many in the MMA community began to worry about Diego's well-being.
Mr. fucking self-awareness, and all he does is comes out and starts fucking, talking shit about people. And now he's going to turn on Diego Sanchez and say bad stuff about Diego?
Immediately.
Listen, the only thing that Diego Sanchez is guilty of is being a really nice guy. And listen, Diego, you lived in a house with Diego for fucking 2 months. Diego's a little out there, okay? Yeah. He's not on the same, wavelength.
Fabia's methods included unconventional and, frankly, bizarre training techniques. Videos surfaced showing Fabia running at Diego with a knife during training and having Diego hung upside down while being struck. Now, these practices were not only unorthodox but also dangerous, raising serious concerns about Fabia's credibility and intentions. As the relationship between Diego and Fabia continued, it became apparent that Fabia was more than just a coach. He was deeply involved in Diego's personal and professional life, making decisions that many felt were not in Diego's best interest. The MMA community watched in disbelief as the saga unfolded, hoping for Diego's safety and well-being. To understand Joshua Fabia, a quick glance at his School of Self-Awareness website and Instagram page is revealing. Fabia promotes himself with grandiose claims: a man who causes tingles with a handshake, a teacher of teachers, someone who can form a lifelong connections with just one glance, feared by many but loved by more, and one of the best trainers in the world. Now, these lofty descriptions come directly from Fabia's promotional materials and give a clear sense of his self-perception. It is easy to see him as part of a long line of dubious martial arts and lifestyle gurus who rely heavily on self-promotion. While 99% of people might see through their act, the remaining 1% can be drawn in, often at a high financial cost. Fabia describes himself as a lifelong healer who has helped everyone from military personnel to Olympic champions achieve their goals. His Instagram is filled with artful shots of him in picturesque locations and videos where women with calming voices praise his merits as a spiritual guide. Diego Sanchez, at a low point in his life, found Fabia's charisma and confidence irresistible.
This strike, remember this strike that I was just showing you? That's what this is into, right? It's not that I'm like trying to just throw it. It's that as my hand is coming, but that back straightening of my arm. So when I'm in the motion, I don't have to strike. I have a strike.
Now, for those who study manipulative or predatory behavior, Fabia's mannerisms can be textbook examples. His overall demeanor comes off as cult leader-esque. Things started getting really strange when Diego, who was scheduled to fight Donald Cowboy Cerrone, was suddenly cut from the UFC. Now, what made this even stranger was the fact that despite not stepping into the octagon, Diego claimed that the UFC still paid him his guaranteed purse, win money, and sponsorship money. This happened after Fabia requested extensive medical records on Diego and then leaked a private meeting video between himself, Diego, and UFC officials. In the video, Fabia, true to form, dodged direct questions, instead talking about himself and his own perceptions. Throughout his time with Diego, Fabia constantly sought the spotlight. He couldn't stay out of the camera's frame, making everything about him and his struggles, no matter the original question. After watching hours of Fabia's footage, it is clear his ego could rival those of the most confident cage fighters. Whether he aimed to promote himself or exploit Diego, the situation hit a breaking point recently when Diego announced he had cut ties with Fabia. Fabia, however, was quick to respond publicly, revealing deeply personal and painful details about Diego's private life. These revelations were not only shocking, but also deeply disrespectful. Fabia even suggested that it was he who had been manipulated by Diego, not the other way around. This claim, coming from a man widely seen as a narcissist, was met with disbelief and anger by the MMA community. Fabia's public appearances consistently show a pattern. He deflects blame and paints himself as the victim. Whether he is trying to promote himself at any cost or genuinely lacks the self-awareness that he preaches is unclear. It's ironic considering he heads a school dedicated to self-awareness. Diego is still a fan favorite, and the MMA fans love to see him fight. So everyone was delighted when the news broke that Sanchez signed a 3-fight contract with Khabib's Eagle Fighting Championship. His debut fight was against Kevin Lee on March 11, 2022. Despite an early injury to Lee's leg, Sanchez was overwhelmed by Lee's superior wrestling skills and lost the fight by unanimous decision. In many ways, Diego Sanchez's career reminds me of Tony Ferguson. Both incredibly entertaining, both completely unorthodox, and both forever fan favorites. Diego's career reminds us of all the importance of the fighting spirit both inside and outside the octagon. As he moves forward from his scarred past because of characters like Fabia, we can only hope for more success and happiness for this MMA legend.